Welcome, everybody. You are watching the School Psych Podcast. We are fresh back from NASP and have all sorts of exciting, fun things to maybe chat about a little bit. I'm excited for our guest tonight, returning guests who we always enjoy chatting with. So this will be a fun conversation and a good night. So, but I'm Rachel. I'm a school psychologist working in Maryland. I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca, who's going to talk to everybody about how to participate tonight. Rebecca.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rebecca. I'm a school psychologist in Florida, and I hope that you are able to tune in live. If you're watching us live, please do log into your YouTube account and you can comment right alongside the video. If you tune in a little late, you can also comment underneath the video. We can catch up to your comments in real time or later on in the week. We love to hear from you, hear what you're thinking, hear what you think about our discussion. So please do chime in if you can on the video. If you're watching audio or listening audio only later, you can also join the conversation. You can either reach out to us on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, School Psych, Your School Psychologist, or the School Psych podcast page, in messages or underneath the post for tonight's episode. And you can also find me at Becca Kamiz on Blue Sky or Threads. And I look forward to hearing from you. I'll be looking out for comments, and we are always active in the chat alongside the live broadcast as well. So we'll be looking for you out there tonight. And now I'm going to pass it over to the School Psychologist of the Year, Eric, who's going to introduce himself and our wonderful guest. Eric?
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. Hopefully we're not lagging. I was having some maybe video and sound problems earlier. So thumbs up. All right. Awesome. Well, we are back from NASP. Rachel and I and Byron were there. We missed Rebecca, but we know you were with us in spirit, and we know you had a lot of stuff going on this week. So hopefully you're able to do what you needed to do. And but we had a great time, and I have to admit, I'm a little exhausted, and I was so happy that Byron said, yeah, he was okay to do the podcast tonight. And I said, all right, let's do it. So we have our recurring guest, Dr. Byron McClure, who probably needs no introduction. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He is the founder of, yes, we're recovering from NASP. Byron is the founder of School Psych AI. And as among other things, when we were in the middle of the pandemic, Byron initiated the Lessons for SEL, which I think thousands of school districts across the country were using, and thousands of school psychologists. He jumped right in and started providing us with content and work that aligned with the Castle work and that aligned with his dissertation work, that for working with, applying social and emotional lessons for our students. And I was so amazed and impressed. So we've been talking to Byron since then, and he moved on and wrote a book, Hacking Deficit Thinking, with Dr. Kelsey Reed. And we had Byron on to talk about that as well. And now he is championing school psychology AI through his new platform. So Byron, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
It's always
I don't know,
do you want?
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Do you want to talk a little bit about NASP and how that went, and we can jump into how things are going now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Eric, Rachel, Rebecca. I always joke and say I'm a friend of the podcast, but thank you. I forget count. This is number 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in between. But I am always a fan of the work that you all do, the platform you all have built, and helping to push the field of school psychology forward. I also, and there's Erica in the comments, took the words right out of my mouth. We have to acknowledge Eric on his major accomplishment, School Psychologist of the Year. I can't think of anyone who deserved it more. So for me, seeing you win that award alongside Dr. Miranda with the Lifetime Achievement Award, is 2 very deserving people. So NASP was a highlight. I'm just celebrating with friends, getting to see people that you don't see in a long time. It also was a very humbling NASP for me. As I listened to you kind of read through my bio a bit, and you did a phenomenal job capturing all the different things that I've been able to do, but it always connects back to a mission of supporting youth in our school communities and hearing people, listening to stories from practitioners that I've met just along my journey of doing this. It was a truly humbling experience to hear the impact that I've had on people.
I noticed
That's
too,
so
you posted you were the second most visited booth at NASP or something along that line. Like that's impressive. And anytime I've seen you, work in the booth, there's usually like a crowd around you and you are, busy. So
That's right. So typically in years past, I've gone to NASP as a presenter. The past 2 years, I've gone as a presenter and also as an exhibitor. And the first year, Rachel, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just there exhibiting. Last year, okay, now we're evolving and growing a bit. And then thank you, Erica says, yes, Byron has done some amazing things in creating community. Thank you, Erica. And then this year, we had a booth and we kind of knew what we were doing. But still, I never take it for granted. And so seeing how many people had scheduled to come see us in the app, and then people who were coming up to us, I thought they were going to grill us and, have all these questions, which is perfectly fine, but it was more gratitude and appreciation of the work that we've done. And NASP, they send out this leader dashboard in the convention app. Among other things that they have, one of the categories was the most selected exhibitor. And Pearson was number one, and we were number two. And the comment Rachel is referring to, I made a comment along the line, yes, they were number one, but they're a massive company, have been doing this for a very long time. And we're the little guys. But what's important is we are for the people, by the people, and we'll always be here to serve the people. And that really showed.
That's awesome. And I will say, no shade on Pearson, but they had cookies and the Bass 4 is coming out. So maybe if they didn't have the cookies and the Bass 4, you'd have been right up there. So
might have been the cookies. We have to see what they're putting in the cookies to keep people hooked and coming back.
Cookies and the new Bass. But I love that, and your humility about looking back to where you've impacted. Like, you knocked it out of the park with Lessons for SEL, and I have so many colleagues throughout the entire state of Connecticut that were using those back when we were struggling. When kids were online and we were doing groups online or individual counseling online and little group classes and jumping into teachers' Zoom lessons and struggling to figure out what we were doing. The cookies were hard. Sorry. I'm so glad Erica's here. It's so nice to have you here, Erica. And really once after, I think it was after that, I talked to you about your dissertation and the work you've done. I think at Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
That's
I think
right.
That's where you went. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, look at that. And just I remember you talking about your research and applying SEL to Black young men, and I was just blown away by just the fact that you were taking the things that we use every day and making sure that it applies to our children, right, and the children you're working with, and I think that really shined through the work that you were doing, and that you were so generous with giving us all of that work when the pandemic hit. So. That was my foray into Byron's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And that was a time where there was a lot of turmoil and unrest and confusion and uncertainty. And because that work really evolved out of my practice and my dissertation, it served a good that people needed in a time when they needed it. And I've always purposed that my work can be of service to people. It's always a vehicle, whether it's lessons for SCL, whether it's the social justice equity work that I've done, whether it's this artificial intelligence, is a vehicle to my larger mission, which is to improve outcomes for youth who've been historically marginalized. And that's always the goal.
What have you noticed? Your book came out a while ago. I feel like it feels like a while since we had you on to talk about hacking deficit thinking. Have you noticed any changes in the way you're able to either run a meeting or advocate for kids? And what have you noticed through your connections and your work in getting the book out there?
Yeah, one of the most humbling, there were so many humbling experiences during NASP. One, I had an opportunity to present. I've partnered with Boston Public Schools, not just for the artificial intelligence piece, but also our strength-based work. And so where, if you don't know, those who are listening, Boston Public Schools and the Boston Health Services under the leadership of Dr. Andrew Amador, Jonathan, just a phenomenal team. They've really pushed forward school-based mental health. And so I'm working on them to leverage this technology so that they can continue expanding their scope of practice while doing it through a lens that is strength-based. And at NASP, I had an opportunity to co-present with that team. And during one of the presentations, one of my Boston colleagues was saying, here's how they've been using the technology, I think, to write FBAs and BIPs. But now, because of the work we've been doing and through the work of hacking deficit thinking and in this partnership, she's now integrating this approach inside of her FBAs and BIPs. And Rebecca, honestly, that was more than what I had even thought, right? And what I mean is I saw this as a way how we approach meetings, how we approach report writing, how we just view the world around us. But to see it actually being implemented in FBAs and BIPs and observations and how we communicate with parents, it's a powerful thing to see that. And I'm blessed and, again, humbled that I've had a part in helping people to see that there's a better way than actually implement it in our day-to-day practice.
That's incredible. I've been reading, was it in the last communique that Boston Public Schools were highlighted somewhere? I've been reading about that amazing work, and that is really incredible that they're able to apply the technology to strength-based thinking. What an incredible example for other school districts. If Boston Public Schools can do that successfully and show us the way, we can do that too. That's really, really, really exciting. Tell us about your presentation at NAS. Tell us more. What was it like for you, and what are you kind of currently really energized about?
Yeah, so I had two presentations at NASP. The first presentation was insights learned since my team, since we've launched School Psych AI. And I want to be fair in what I'm about to say. We were the first company in the field of school psychology to launch utilizing AI to write reports. And I say I want to be fair because Click Report is another company here to help write reports, and they've been around for a very long time as well. So I want to be fair in how I present that. And so our presentation was, since we launched September of 2023, were insights that we've learned since we've launched. And that was, it was new this year. It was an exhibitor presentation. And so it was really neat to be able to share some of those insights and lessons learned, because we have a very unique vantage point into how practitioners and school psychologists are using artificial intelligence every single day, that a lot of people, many people, really no one else has insights into. And so that was the first presentation. The second presentation was the presentation with Boston Public Schools, and we discussed what this partnership looks like. What I really loved about that was it wasn't one-sided. It was a true collaborative partnership where we went through, here's the implementation science behind it. Here's the rationale of why we're doing it. Here's the scope and sequence. Here's what we're getting right. And here's opportunities where we can grow and keep getting better. We have some insight data from that partnership that we have as well. And so we went through some of the data and some of the findings as well. And so those were the two presentations that I had along with exhibiting. To the last part of what you said, what's energizing me just in general is I think we have an opportunity to continue moving the field in the right direction. And when I say in the right direction, to me, that's an expanded scope of practice. I see in my conversations from NAS, from the presentations, that people are really craving a better way to practice. And I know that there is a better way to practice. And I'm energized because I know that we are saying that we don't have to practice in the traditional, outdated way. We can move forward to providing more direct services, counseling, Eric, the social emotional learning lessons, and expanding into our full scope of practice again, so that we can continue not continue, but so that we can actually do the work that we've been called to do.
That's amazing. I'm wondering. I think we talked when we talked to you last. I think you had gotten your HIPAA compliance or were just getting that stuff going, and I'm wondering what's new with School Psych AI and what kinds of changes have happened this past year and all of that.
Whew. All right. So I'm glad we're catching up. We have had quite a bit of updates. And so at that time, so that had to be February of last year. And we had just received, going into NAS, our FERPA compliance, and we were independently evaluated by a third party independent evaluator. The company is called I Keep Safe. And they are connected with ASCD. It's the essentially providing best practices around data privacy and security. And so that independent evaluation involved their team. We went through a very comprehensive process that was about 3 to 4 months long. And then after they reviewed our tech stack, we had to update our policies, data retention, terms of service, review again our entire tech stack. And then after that said, based on the highest federal standards, yes, you all are adhering to the highest level of data privacy and security. Not because I say so, I have a business interest, but based off of their independent evaluation. We are actually going through that renewal process. You have to renew once a year, and we're finishing. So this week we should be putting something out about that as well. So in terms of other updates that we have for the platform, a lot of listening to our community about what's needed, about how practitioners are practicing, and then taking that feedback and implementing it into our solution, School Psych AI, that matches how practitioners actually work. One of the things, and this is a lesson learned, we tried to take too much feedback and throw everything back to everyone. And practitioners are busy, which is why we're creating this platform to help alleviate some of that pressure and tension. But what we've learned is practitioners don't have time to learn something that might take time to actually utilize. And so it's a catch-22. So last week, we made a big update to the platform to where we've really simplified it. You come in and start having a conversation with your thought partner, Sophia, which is our conversational chatbot. And this, it might not sound like it, but it's a substantial update because we've really simplified the process to make it seamless. You come in, you get started, and that's it. We've had many other updates working on improving accuracy, reducing hallucinations. We are an official NASP approved CPD provider because we've recognized that, yes, you can provide a tool, but do people know how to utilize it? Why are they utilizing it? And so now we're providing trainings that you can receive NASP approved CPDs for as well.
I've noticed, and so you were like, the first kind of in the mix, and now I'm seeing other booths pop up. How do you see that going? Everybody seems to be jumping into kind of the AI mix. Some of it isn't specific to school psychologists. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you see a lot of competition out there, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm very glad that you asked. And I've been telling my team that we are here. Our mission is to support practitioners so that they can do the work that they've been called to do. And so we've known from the beginning, at least I've known from the beginning, that there are going to be others that pop up as well. But we're mission driven in what we do. And so we can't be sidetracked by that. Even walking around the exhibit hall, there's so many companies that are popping up. So you have to look at the publishers. Some have been watching to get a gauge of what's happening, and then they're going to come out. There are other publishers who have already released, right? If you have a NASP bag, you see there's a big name right on the front and center of their report writer that they've released. And we're talking about, some multi-million-dollar companies. We're talking about some billion-dollar entities that are even publicly traded. We recognize that there are some private equity-backed companies that are popping up as well. We can't be sidetracked with that. Even those companies that are popping up, they have so much to learn about the field of school psychology. Some of them aren't created by school psychologists, and so they don't know what they don't know as of yet. Some of them just have a purely business interest because they see an opportunity. And others have pivoted into this. So whatever their reasons are, that's on them. For me and my team, our mission has always been the same. It will continue to be the same. There's real work that we need to do, and we're going to be completely locked in listening. I've been on customer service, talking to people, scheduling calls for tomorrow, because this work for us continues. And as long as I'm here, we're always going to be of service and committed to that.
I wanted to also ask kind of what your thoughts are. Like I have a teacher that so I myself have been using Copilot a little bit because that's what's approved by my district, right? And so I've been having it analyze some FBA data. It's been really good at kind of putting things in charts for me that are maybe a little bit like in our other systems that are kind of haphazard and need to be formatted. And so I've been using it a little bit, but I went to write an FBA with her and it significantly cuts down time. Instead of going through all the ABC charts, I can have everything into a Google form, upload the Google form, and have, the program kind of look for patterns of antecedents and things. But she brought up that she's not comfortable using AI because of ethical reasons. So it seems to be kind of a drain on resources and water and electricity. And I'm not sure if there's pollution involved. I don't really understand that whole world or aspect of AI. Do you have any thoughts on that? I feel like the genie's kind of out of the bottle at this point, at the lamp. AI is here, whether, I could boycott AI, and I'm not sure is that, it's going to do anything at this point. But can you talk a little bit about what her concerns, what you suspect they might be? I'm not sure I totally understand them myself. Are you aware of some of those things?
Yes. And so I love how you framed that question. And so essentially, her concerns, along with some others, are really around data centers and the consumption of these data centers and their impact on the environment. We're dealing with what's called large language models, and in these data centers, they require massive energy to cool, which is why they use watering systems to do that. And also, there's an element of pollution that does go into it. And also, where are these data centers popping up? And so, you're right, Rachel. On the one hand, the genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. I also recognize that the concerns that you're hearing is while the genie may be out of the bottle, we still have a responsibility to Earth, and to be good stewards of it. And I believe in that deeply as well. What I also know is that there are those who are billionaires who have an obligation, but they don't see it as an ethical obligation of theirs, where power and money rule all. And what you see in those instances, these data centers have always been around. We have to be very clear on that. When you're searching in Google, when you're on social media, when you're on your phone, the cloud is all consuming data. Okay, so let's be clear about that. More data centers are popping up as well. The question is, where are these data centers popping up? And often people reference my parents' hometown, West Memphis, Tennessee, and more inner city, some rural settings where they are negatively impacting those communities. I'm going to be releasing something. I've actually been sitting on it because I'm still wrestling with it and looking to understand. But over Christmas break, I went and I visited with my family in West Memphis. And for those who don't know, Google has stood up a massive data center in West Memphis. Elon Musk and his folks have put a data center, which is, I think, doing a lot of harm to the South Memphis community as well. And they broke what they said they were going to do on the South Memphis side. And they're running essentially generators. It's a problem. That's a problem, and they're not cooperating with the city as they should. That's a problem. They don't care. Back to Google and their building, I've stood right in front of their data center, and my family's family is right there. We could see it. And so it was very interesting. And my dad, who is from that area, gave us a tour of the entire area. And we got out, we walked, we talked to our family who literally is there in the country and asked them. This goes back to us and having a posture of listening and learning and hearing how this is impacting them. And they talked about, on the one hand, they have brought jobs. Some of my cousins are working in some of those plants. And to be clear, in those communities, they just took over some plants that have already been there for a while. Nonetheless, we have to have real conversations about the impact. I don't have all the answers, so I want to listen to understand what the impact of these data centers are going to be. I also know that I don't trust these billion-dollar conglomerates, with running the risk of sounding semi-arrogant. I trust me and practitioners who have the best interests of our community. And so, Rachel, back to your point with the genie being out of the bag, if not us, if we don't have a voice in this, we're going to leave it up to those other people? No, not at all. We can work with our politicians and those who have power, and we need to be in proximity to power so that we can say, hey, here's how these data centers are going to impact our community. Here's how it must be implemented in the field. Here's more reliable sources of energy and better energy sources that we should be advocating for, clean sources of energy as well. And then the last thing that I'll say about this is we also must understand, in the context of these data centers, how much artificial intelligence is impacting. And when we look at it at scale, it's a very tiny percentage when you compare it to, let's say, agriculture, right? Which is exponentially more than the consumption of artificial intelligence, even clothing and manufacturing as well. So do we ignore it? No. Do we stop using it? No. Do we challenge those who are in power to be more thoughtful and mindful? Yes. And do we ensure that our voice is heard when these decisions and policies are happening? You better believe it.
That's so important. And as you're saying all that, it just, proximity to power, that phrase resonates with me, because as people who are have more positions of power in affecting both the way we're consuming energy and creating waste, they also have the power to find solutions, to organize, get people together to create solutions at the same time. And if we're not just driven by the bottom line of a company, then it's easier to do that. So I think just school psychologists and our field generally, because we have such, we're based in such strong ethical principles for our work, and we're required to pay attention to how we impact other, and at the very least do no harm. So I think we're just much better equipped to think about the systems and the things that need to change, and trying to balance it out. So I really just appreciate what you said.
Yeah. And I'm willing to listen to anyone. So I'm open to a conversation because I don't have all the answers. We have our thinking on it, but I'm always open to have conversations about this.
So question, and I don't know anything about the data centers and all the things, and clearly I need to probably learn a bit. So do you as a company know what data center maybe you're tied to, or how does that work? How does that work?
Yes. So I referenced a bit ago that most of these companies that are driving higher consumption are leveraging what's called large language models. So think massive data sets. Think your big companies, Chat GPT. Well, think about the company OpenAI, which is using ChatGPT. Think Claude, which is Anthropic. Think Google, Gemini. Okay. For our company, we are using smaller models, which has a much smaller carbon footprint. And so what that means is whenever you use our platform, because we've thought about this, and we're not using Chat GPT, we're not using Gemini, we're not using those massive ones. There are instances where we will run more complex queries just because of the nature of what we do. But our developers, shout out to Ed, my co-founder and CTO, we were able to route. A lot of our practitioners would just say, summarize this as a prompt. And we're working on helping people to prompt a bit better. But if it's not complex, then we don't need to use this massive large language model to do that. We run it through a very simple route that can do that. And so for that, we are being very environmentally cautious of how we are leveraging this technology.
Wondering if in the future, how you went through that rigorous process to, for your security and whatnot, if in the future, there might be certifications for like a greener AI company or something like that, so people can be mindful of what they're using and which ones are the most detrimental or where that's impacting. And like when I go to book my flight now, Google Flights will tell me like, this is a more green way to travel this route here versus this one over there, so that people can kind of be mindful consumers. I don't know.
Yeah, we had a brief conversation internally about that, but wondering if there's like some eco-friendly seal that we can have. But we would love to do that. Again, when we first launched, back in September 2023, we were the first to put out ethical guidance of how to think about this work. We were one of the first to put out, answering questions that people had about this field. And so, Rachel, to the point that you're making, we want to continue leading the way in that and listening so that we understand as well.
One more question kind of ties to like ethical guidance and whatnot. When school psychologists are using AI, where do you stand on, should that be explicitly like cited in a report that this report was used with assistance from AI or this was generated? I'm wondering about parents that maybe have objections to it or uneasy. Are districts even going a step further and maybe getting consent or adding that to their consent forms when they do an evaluation that your child's data would, might be analyzed or synthesized through AI? So what are your thoughts there?
I'm glad you asked. So several years ago now, the Ethics Council convened. We put out the ethical guidance document, releasing our 6 guiding ethical principles. One of them is transparency. And so a little bit after the council convened, we had a follow-up, and we just had a session on that question, really around informed consent. And it was a very spirited conversation, which is why we had this council, because it was an important conversation. And what we landed on at that time, why we landed on these guiding principles, was that so we can always refer back to them and it can guide how we practice. One of the guiding principles is transparency. And so what we landed on was, because transparency is one of our guiding principles in this moment, then it makes sense for us to be transparent in how we operate. And that's practitioners, that's solution providers, and everyone in between. So we released our article in May, that'll be 2 years ago, about informed consent, and where, not if, where you should have that conversation. And we said it should not be in the report. It should be in the informed consent form during that process. And about a month ago, we updated that and we released 2 documents. And so if you go to the school site website, schoolsite.ai, if you go to the upper right-hand corner and go to resources, there's articles there. You can find the full reference there. Or if you go to informed consent, we have 2 templates. The first is a full informed consent form that you can print out and share with parents about informing them during the informed consent process that you're utilizing this technology. Many of us already have informed consent forms. So the second template is simply language that you can pull from, add it to your existing informed consent form, and then you can keep going.
I'm assuming at some point it's going to be second nature. I'm still the old guy who's like, do I prompt this to give me a summary? I'm still like hand scoring my, cognitive tests, and I don't have to, but I do because I like it and I'm old. But I think at some point these will probably be embedded in, I'm assuming districts are going to begin adopting and partnering with AI companies to do this kind of work. I think might take us a little bit of time, but people will start to see that this is more efficient. I still do a lot of stuff by hand, but Erica, yes, trying to learn new tricks. Exactly. That's where I live, trying to learn new tricks. But I imagine that we're going to start embedding this stuff, in our consent forms, and it's going to be second nature. That, just like we score things on Q Global, we might be writing things using School Psych AI or some, another, some sort of platform that our district will partner with.
Yeah, and people need guidance of how to do it. One thing that I've learned is that this is still so new. And there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of unknown. And I have purpose to help people each step of the way. One really fascinating thing that we're finding is that more school districts, the larger school districts, are starting to get on board. They're recognizing it's not going anywhere, and so they're starting to implement it. What I also recognize is that uh, the pace of this is really fast, and a lot of districts and research has not caught up with the rapid advancements of this technology. And so I have purpose to work with districts and even institutions so that I can help them to move like startups so that they don't fall further and further behind. Um,
That makes sense. We had a question here. Two of my colleagues did your little video that you posted, which was awesome. And Kate, that's Kate, one of the folks who came by the booth, but wanted to know how is using SchoolSpsych AI different than scoring a test online via the test maker's website with regard to probably FERPA and confidentiality.
Yeah, from the technology side, there's some of those publishers, some might be using artificial intelligence, some might be using what's called logic, which are different ways to calculate scores. If this, then that, and then it's this preset output that you might get. Each one of those publishers have gone through their own FERPA, HIPAA compliance process. Likely they have as well. And so there might be slight variations across publishers, but ultimately it's all the same. In our platform, we are not scoring for you. Okay, we are not taking raw scores and converting anything. We are helping you, and this is a big part of our platform with paraphrasing and back to the large language models, right? What that means is this technology can understand massive amounts of language. That's all we're talking about, data and language. And our platform can take the language and help you to do things like paraphrase, rephrase, summarize, make it strength based, make it parent friendly. And so that's what people are utilizing our platform. And we use several different technologies, not just artificial intelligence, to help with that. And again, it's all within a fully FERPA compliant platform and infrastructure.
There's a discussion in the chat about training graduate students on AI tools and how to use them effectively, and just talking about these ideas. And I agree that we need to be talking about it. In my final year of graduate school again, I am hearing from professors who have been professors since well before AI was an issue. Their stance is just don't use it, because it's, everything you write is run through these AI detection platforms like turnitin.com or whatever. And then if they get any whiff of any, even Grammarly, it's academic dishonesty and you're going to fail. And it's so terrifying to me that that's kind of what I do. I just don't use it. But I think that I would welcome just actual training on it within our ethical codes, and how do we use it to make our work more efficient. So I wish that were true. It doesn't seem to be happening yet, at least not in my program, but maybe in the future. I think we would all benefit from that.
It has to. I don't think that's something that we can leave to chance. And even NASP, met so many graduate students, had conversations with so many professors, but we have to have trainings at the graduate, even the undergraduate level, and also working with professors as well, so that we can help them understand this technology and integrate it not just in your assessment courses, but in ethics and consultation across all classes, so that we can understand the limitations, how to use it responsibly, and so that we're not afraid of it, but we understand how best to utilize it. We have for graduate students, we actually have a graduate student discount. I'll get it to you because I don't want to misquote it, but I think it's grad SP, something like that. I'll find it, I'll drop it. We could get it out to everyone. But we provide a discount to graduate students. But the key thing is, it is important that our graduate students learn it now, and also that our professors learn it as well, so that when they actually enter into the field, they're ready, and researchers can actually conduct. We also need more researchers to conduct more research about this technology, how it's being utilized, limitations of it, and that research must keep up with the pace of the advancing of this technology as well. And I saw Tiffany in the chat. So hey, Tiffany, I got to see her and Nash as well.
That's awesome. I think we have a good crew here and some good discussion. Interestingly, Rebecca commenting about grad school and Erica also using those tools. I'm writing a paper right now on positive predictive value and Bayesian modeling to look at actual sensitivity and specificity, and using some better models than the typical 2-gate sampling design that we use. And so I ran some of my statistics through ChatGPT just to ask the old dog. I'm like, I don't use AI a whole lot, but I'm like, let me see if this can do some stuff for me. And it was super helpful. I do need to double check and make sure it's accurate. But I uploaded some research, a couple of papers that I had written, and a paper that a friend had written that I wasn't sure if my friend's was available because it was written for a school psych newsletter. And then I thought, just out of curiosity, one of the papers I wrote in 2018, absolutely zero AI. I asked it what it thought about whether or not AI had assisted it, and it said that it was likely 90% written by AI. And I was like, that's so funny.
Oh yeah,
it was 100% not.
Yeah, and I think I did see a comment about that. I might have been talking. Someone talked about the AI detectors. Give it to me. I'll tell you if AI wrote it or not. The AI detectors, the reality is, like, they're not reliable, and they can be beat as well. I'm not going to say, because there might be graduate students
You
listening,
don't
but
want anybody to know.
I'm not going to do that. But the point is, they're not reliable at all. And then Eric, you said something that I also want to stress in this conversation around artificial intelligence, and that is that we are the experts. This technology, I believe, is a powerful technology that we must use to support us in our work, to expand our scope of practice. We must have a human in the loop, which we must be at the center of every choice, every decision. And it's imperative that if you are going to utilize this technology, that you double check whether that's Sophia, whether that's a Chat GBT, whether that's Claude, Manus, or any other platform that you are using. Double, triple check your responses, because the reality is that you are responsible for what you put in that report or anything that you're working on. And in the vein of report writing, we write reports to create a holistic picture of a child, of where they are, how they're performing, and how we might improve outcomes for that student. And if you get to the IEP table and you can't speak to who that child is or how we are going to implement goals or strategies to help support that student, then we're not doing what we've been called to do. And so you better double, triple check to ensure accuracy, and you better be able to speak to the findings of that child. Still have a responsibility. And with or without AI, we're the practitioners.
I think that's so true. And that's refreshing to hear. And also kind of ironic that, you're, saying that. And then at the same time, I'm seeing headlines in the news that the US government wants to use AI to wage a war without any oversight.
Can we talk about it, please? And Rachel, I'm glad that you brought this up. To me, this goes back to the environmental conversation. And we have to consider the context that we're talking about these things, right? Even Eric, going back to SEL, like we have to consider the context of those things. I put that out in the midst of the pandemic. And then a few years later with George Floyd and everything, shortly after, because the political climate, they essentially wiped SEL out of schools. And so we must consider the context. Today, if you go on any news channel, you see that we're in the face of war with Iran. And what's being used? We have to have a conversation about Anthropic and ChatGPT and OpenAI. And Anthropic, who supposedly has a ethical clause, which they say that, and give or take whatever your stance is, they did not release allegedly the DoD, the Department of Defense. They did not give them the go ahead to utilize their technology. And the political powers that be said, hey, you better give us your technology. This is the point that I was making earlier. The powers that be can use this to cause serious harm. And while Anthropic, where their CEO said, hey, you can't use this, they said, okay, fine. And that's where Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, will do it. And now the DoD has a partnership with OpenAI. But even reports came out today that said that the DoD and some of those missions, they still use Anthropic. They still use Claude. So listen, what does this have to do with school psychologists? We are in a very peculiar time in this country. And I know for the work that we do in our school communities, we must advocate, we must speak out, we must fight, we must be of service of our students in our school community. And we must be stewards of good technology, of good practices, of good research, of good data that will do a social good for our communities. That's paramount. And I have the privilege, the honor to stand in that line of being a former practitioner, of being still a national certified school psychologist, and an owner of an AI company that says we are going to utilize this technology for good. And we have to stand on that. Our national association calls for us to be change agents. They say that. I'm gonna have to find it, but they call for us to be change agents. And so in these moments to where you have to make a decision, because standing idly by, you're making a decision. And for me, as a person, as a practitioner, I'm saying we're gonna be on the right side of this thing.
I wrote in the comments, Byron, every time I talk with you, I want to yell preach.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. Amen. Thank you.
Yeah. If we don't, like, and this is where this technology can be used to harm a lot of people, if we're being honest about it. One of the reasons why the CEO of Anthropic said, hey, you're not going to use this, is because the DoD wanted to use it for mass surveillance of people. So we have to understand this technology. We have to understand how it can be used. We have to understand the limitations of it. And in our field, we must ask those important questions, which I'm glad that you all are asking these questions, and for you all having me on to attempt to answer some of these questions. And I'm committing myself to also listen so that I can hear. I've had the privilege of working with people all over the country. And my commitment to everyone that I speak to is to be a steward of the responsibility that I've been given so that we can improve outcomes for the youth that we serve.
That's awesome. I know we're like right at 8 o'clock, just 2 or 3 minutes. Byron, as always, we absolutely love having you on. So we will definitely want to continue talking with you more and more. I don't know if anyone has last comments or questions, or Erica jumped in with, yes, Byron's a preacher if you've ever heard him speak.
Thanks,
And
Eric.
a little shout out to Dr. Wood also. So last week we did a little segment at the end citing Black scholars, and shared a little Google Drive with some research in it. And we highlighted Gus. Thank you, Gus. We highlighted the article that Erica co-authored in the NASP communique on using Black feminist thought, as our model for leadership, reimagining leadership through the lens of Black feminist thought. And so Rebecca shared a little abstract of that. And so just giving you a little shout out, Dr. Wood, you're doing great work, and we appreciated getting to hear you speak as well. So Gus is referencing my tears when I was sharing my thank yous and got choked up. And I gave Gus a little shout out because he was teasing me at work about man up when I was getting choked up. So
That's great.
Thank you, GV.
That's great. Eric, I do have two quick things
absolutely.
before we wrap up. So one thing is the Black School Psych Network. One of the things, and as so many people came up to me, to my team, Tierra Bland was there, Carlita was there as well, and so many people just talked about the impact of the Black School Psych Network. And so we will be having our virtual summit coming up in April. So it's going to be April 23rd through the 24th. I encourage people to go to bsbninc.com to check that out and to support the awesome work that's being done there. And then earlier we talked about hacking deficit thinking. I've had the pleasure this time to write a second book that will be coming out this spring. Shift to What's Strong: 6 strength-based habits that shape how you see yourself, your students, and the world around you. So I'm super excited for this book to be released, which is going to focus on more of the practical aspects of it. When we are burnt out and stressed and we have so many things going on, we typically default back to what we know. And I want to shift our default to being this strength-based philosophy, not just artificially, I use that intentionally, changing our language, but changing the way how we practice and show up in the world. So more details to come about that. I know I said 2 things, but the third thing, Eric, Rachel, Rebecca, from the first time I saw y'all, I don't know if we were in Baltimore or Chicago or where we were. And I told you all, I was starstruck watching y'all glide. It felt like you all were floating across the room, and I was starstruck. But I am a fan of the work that you all do, the message that you all promote, everything that you all do for the field. So thank you all for the invitation to come back. I don't take that lightly, and I'm very appreciative of each of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Byron.
Yeah. And we can't wait to have you back to talk about the new book. That's so exciting. We can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, no, thank you so much. I also want to say too that I have a practicum student working with me this year, and she was telling me how her program is teaching them to be very mindful of using kind of strength-based language and the language that they use in the reports and how they talk with parents. And I, thought about you and the work that you and others have been doing to kind of to promote that type of thing. And I feel like it's making a difference, and our grad students are coming up and doing better than what we have. And, you know, we're trying to learn ourselves. And so, yeah, I thought of you when she was talking about that. So, but yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking for any last minute comments or questions, but I know we're a little bit over time. And thank you so much for spending your time. I know you're tired from all the NASP activities, and you still were willing to join us on for this. So yeah, so thank you so much. But I don't see anything else. Any other last comments? Anybody? We're good.
We have Charles Barrett in 2 weeks, so come back. It'll be a good conversation again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.